the meditative state can be quite internal. So maybe before we jump into the topic that I'd like to share with you, any reflections or questions about the meditation practice that we just did? It's really nice to be able to discuss and talk about it because it's can be so nebulous and maybe challenging. Yes, please.
Could you please explain the 24-minute thing?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So it comes out of a few different sources, and the ones I know of are namely the Kala Chakra Tantra, which is an ancient text from India. Kala means time, chakra means chakra, it means wheel of time. Kala Chakra Tantra means text. Literally means fabric, actually, but it comes to be the name of kind of classic texts. You have the sutras and then the tantras. So the Kala Chakra Tantra, how many people have heard of this and have actually maybe even learned about it? The Dalai Lama gives the Kala Chakra teachings a lot and empowerments. Has anybody ever attended his Kala Chakra events? If you ever have a chance to do that, I mean, he's so old now. I mean, who knows how many more years he'll be with us. But if you ever have a chance to receive the teachings and empowerment, blessings from the Dalai Lama on the Kala Chakra Tantra, I encourage you to do so. It's a text that goes into great detail about, it's like a creation story. It goes into a story about the creation of this universe, the eons, the creation and destruction of eon after eon, but it talks about also the length of lifespan, the lifespan of an average human being in terms of 100 years, and then it breaks it down into different segments, and according to how many breaths we take in each life and each day. I think it said we take 21,000 breaths in a day or something like this. And I don't remember all of the intricacies of that cosmology and that system, but one very important, more useful and practical aspect of this text is the idea of what's called the Gatika, G-A-T-I-K-A, Gatika. And it refers to 24 minutes. And that is said to be the length of time that it takes the energy in the body to circulate through the nadis or the channels, one complete time. And so it's a nice length of time to meditate. It's a nice length of time to do anything. Yoga, walking, movement, practice of some kind. And 5 Gatikas makes 2 hours, and that's said to be a nice length of time for one full, complete practice. Say if you're a yogi and you want to do yoga, pranayama, and meditation, 5 Gatikas is said to be an optimal length of time for practice, which makes 2 hours. Then you also see this 24-minute segment of time discussed in the Chinese medical texts as well. And so they also believe that this is the length of time that it takes the energy to circulate through the body, one full cycle. And one of my early mentors and meditation teachers, Alan Wallace, would introduce me to this idea and the practice. And on his retreats, we would often do Gatikas back to back. So we would do maybe 2 Gatikas back to back, where you would sit for 24 minutes, he'd ring the bell, and then you could shift your position if you needed to stretch your legs or lie down or change your position, and then he'd ring it again and we'd start our Gatika again. It's a really nice, doable length of time because, like I said, it's not too long, not too short. Sometimes if you try to sit for a really long time, you get discouraged because most of the time is spent who knows where, lost in la la land, or tired. And if so short is better than long. And also, frequency trumps duration. So there have been studies that show in any kind of practice, it's more important to do it more often and regularly than it is to do it rarely for a longer period of time. So that goes for meditation. So doing it every day for 5 minutes is better than doing it once a week for an hour. like that. Or doing a Gatika every day is better than doing, 2 hours every Sunday morning, whatever. So that's that. Is that good? Yeah. Okay, anyone else? Gatika. Attending to the field of the body, I breathe in. Attending to the field of the body, I breathe out. How did that feel? Did it help you attend to the field of the body? Did it help you stay in the body? With your body? Yeah. It's a really useful tool, especially for those of us with busy, active minds, which is pretty much most of the Western culture. It's nice to give that busy mind something to do. If we just pull the rug out from under it and tell it, just sit down and shut up. Don't think. Don't do anything. It's going to freak out. So giving it, kind of coaxing it like you would a child, or when you're taming a horse or something like this, skillful means, wisely working with it rather than clamping down and suffocating it, can, a little bit goes a long way. So giving the busy mind something to do. Sometimes counting is used. You can count the breath at the end of the out breath, count 1, then 2. That's really helpful. That's helped me a lot. But then these phrases are good too. And then, so attending to the field of the body is just come home and be here. Attend, be with, just pay attention. Then after you feel like you've kind of stabilized with that, then you can move to the next phrase, which is soothing the field of the body. I breathe in, soothing the field of the body. I breathe out. So that brings more relaxation, more quality of spaciousness, hopefully a soothing feeling. Yeah.
The words that you used when you said that, the field of the body.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before. And
Yeah.
so when you said it, I was kind of like, trying to integrate that.
Uh-huh.
And I guess the first thing that it made me feel was like more like a field around my body,
Mm-hmm.
like the field of energy, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder whether that is implied with those words, or.
Of course, we can agree that there is a field of energy around you. The warmth, the vibrancy of your being doesn't just stop at the skin. So that's there, but that's not what we're talking about with this practice. It's more about attending to what's happening inside the body in this particular practice. So the word field, I don't know what it is in Sanskrit, but the word field in both cases is meaning the field of sensory impressions, or the field of tactile sensations. So the whole gamut of the body, the whole energy field of the body. And you might sense that there's, it's not just at the skin, and that's okay too. But be careful to stay in the body. I think the point of these phrases and mindfulness practice in general is about being in the body fully. We can very easily kind of get up and out in fantasy world or mind movies about this, that, and the other thing. So that's the main point. Yeah. But we are not just our body, kind of bigger. Yeah.
I know that in most Tibetan Buddhist practices, the recommendation is to keep the eyes slightly open and angled downwards.
Uh-huh.
At least that's my understanding.
Yep.
And just in terms of really, really touching into the inner body and feeling the sensations, I find that I can do that well when I have my eyes closed, and I love it.
Yeah.
It's so nice to just get in there and feel the aliveness. And when I open my eyes, I just feel like I fall out of touch with that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because the world floods in.
Yeah, and especially in a group. It can be hard to practice with the eyes open, especially like if we're in a circle instead of just rows upon rows upon rows. Also, if people are moving a lot, it can be distracting if your eyes are open. And yes, it can be harder to connect with what's happening inside, because when we have our eyes open, we're so used to living our life with the eyes open, engaging with the world. And so it takes time to retrain that. And that's why I don't know if you notice, but I always in this class say either practice with your eyes open or closed, doesn't matter. If the eyes are open, the instruction is to have them slightly open or slightly hooded is a nice phrase. You know, the eyelids are the hoods, and the hoods are kind of mostly closed. You're allowing just enough light to get in so that you can stay wakeful. The eyes open has benefits, and the eyes closed has benefits. So, you know, I can't remember which scholar said this. A translator said, you know, nowhere in the sutras does the Buddha say to meditate with the eyes closed. He's always saying that the instruction is to gaze past the level of the nose. And yet that's a really popular old way of practicing. Burmese, Sri Lanka, I believe a lot of the Theravadan traditions, the earlier traditions, meditate with their eyes closed. And it's not to say you can't achieve great states of meditative absorption with the eyes closed. Of course you can. If somebody's sleepy when they meditate, if they get dull, it might be better for them to cultivate comfort and ease with the eyes open. But if somebody is easily agitated and distracted, maybe closing the eyes is better. So you see how there's no real good or bad. I will say that I was used to meditating with my eyes closed, and then I learned to do it with the eyes open and did a lot of retreat that way in group and solo retreat and got used to meditating with the eyes open. Also, there are different practices where you change the gaze of the eyes. Like there's the sky gazing practice where you're actually elevating the gaze, and that changes a lot, actually. It helps to open the energy in ways that you wouldn't know. You don't get that same effect with the eyes totally closed or even down. There are even some very advanced practices where you're looking to the side. It gets really interesting. They say the eyes are associated with the element fire, and they perceive form. And so, you know, are you dimming the fire? Are you turning the fire up? What do you need? Kind of anecdotally. But if you're trying to really come home and be present and feel the sensations of the body, and it's easier for you to do it with the eyes closed, go ahead and do it. It's totally fine. Hi, it's nice to see you too. You can come up, come closer. So you see how it's really important as we embark on the path of meditation. Yeah, come closer. And I like it when everybody's filling the first 2 rows, but I don't want to make you do anything that you don't have to do. This is your night out. It's important not to get bogged down in rules or to put yourself in a box and go, well, I learned to meditate with my eyes closed, and that means it's the best way. You know, I'm not saying that's what any of you are doing. I'm just saying my experience is the more that I learn, the more I practice, the more I study, the more I realize there's really no shoulds. You know, it's all relative. What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? They say that the Buddha taught as many meditation techniques as there are people. That everybody will come at it a little differently. Yeah?
No question.
Sure.
Kind of relating to what you talked about the eyes in different positions.
Yeah.
I got it off, I forgot the gentleman's name. I saw it on a video and it seems to have worked for me, but I'm really a little uncertain of what it does. Palms down brings the breath into the belly, palms up brings it into the chest. Is there a significance to that?
Yeah, I've also learned that, and through experience I feel it's true that when the palms are resting down on the lap, it helps to ground the energy. It brings apana vayu down, if you're familiar with the vayus and the wind names. It brings a downward energy flow, rooted. So if you are distracted, agitated, feel like you need calming, then palms down can really help. If you're tired, lethargic, dull, turning the palms up can bring more solar energy, or it helps the prana, the upward vayu, balance and lift. And then there's these positions which have different meanings. The Zen does that. Everybody's got their own version. Tibetan meditation is just very simple, just natural state, not too. This is nice though. This is the classic position of the Buddha. They say the 7-point posture of the Buddha Vairochana. And this is the mudra of meditative equipoise, where the right hand is resting in the left. And then the two thumbs are meeting. The left hand symbolizes wisdom, the right hand symbolizes skillful means and compassion. And so the wisdom is supporting the skillful means and compassion. So there's this deep, beautiful symbolic reasoning for all this. So, but test it for yourself. Have you benefited from the different positions of the hands?
I never recognized the grounding, but yeah, depending on...
oh yeah, you said the belly.
Yeah, I get more oxygen into my belly or into my lungs, depending.
Yeah.
And I've used it as a opportunity for healing, so to speak.
Yeah.
When I meditate, like putting smoke and breathing into my lungs, getting more oxygen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, so it makes sense in the light of the panavayu and pranavayu, the downward flow and the upward flow, that the downward would help the energy converge more at the belly, or the hara. This is called the vase. And the main point of yogic and meditation, not the main point, but both Hindu and Buddhist yogic practices cultivate the energy at the vase breath. And so yes, it's good to really nourish that. But at times it's also good to cultivate the heart, the lungs. But when the belly's supported and open, it naturally helps the heart to open too. It's also, then we can bring the third center in, the head center. So when the belly is embodied and present and open and awake, then the heart can open and become more tender. When the heart and belly are online, then the head center can come online. And that's the luminosity, the clarity, the vividness of awareness. So we all have these three centers are said to have intrinsic qualities. The belly has the intrinsic quality of presence. If you feel it, like when we're in the belly, when we're really embodying the belly, you have a quality of you're here. You're really present, grounded. When the intrinsic quality of the heart is openness. So when the heart is open, there's a tenderness, there's compassion, there's more capacity for love and empathy. When the heart is open. And then, I'll just finish this and then you can... And then when the head, the intrinsic quality of the head is wakefulness. Head center. When the head center is online or open, there's a quality of clarity, luminosity. It's like the vision, the third eye opening. The inner vision opens up.
It's interesting that you say that. I'm doing a lot of recovery work around some child stuff and taking a look at some past relationships. I can literally feel the energetic center in my solar plexus. While I'm writing, I will get just this swirl of, as I get angry, I recognize right here just a tormenting energy of, like, it just swirls, and I can feel it so centered in my solar plexus.
Yeah. Yeah. So, a couple of things come to mind. It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that two things come to mind. One is that you, in a moment of, I don't know, when you're riding your bike, you said like...
Writing.
Oh, writing. Good. I didn't know if you were on your Harley or if you were on a bike, or maybe get off the bike and then ask this feeling. What I'm saying is, yeah, while you're writing, that's great. While you're writing, ask yourself if this feeling could speak, what would it say? And then write that down. There's also an impression just from watching you, and I've had similar experiences where there will often be a pressure where the energy needs to... The experience of awakening is an upward journey, right? So like the Kundalini opens up from the base to the top, the central channel. And so you're opening your belly, you're doing your breathing, you've got your meditation technique that's helping to cultivate your belly center. So the energy starts to get cultivated there and starts to wake up. And it needs to go somewhere. Where does it go? It goes up because heat rises and Kundalini rises. And if the heart has had trauma or been broken or is wounded, it has protected itself by closing down, right? We shut off, we close down, we guard the heart. And so this energy that's rising from the base can get stuck, can get hot, can get, like what you're saying, you're feeling this pressure at the solar plexus. So I would encourage you to find ways to start to open and let that energy keep going. It doesn't just stop there. Let it keep going. Oftentimes we block it here too. Why? Because we weren't allowed to speak our truth. We were told to shut up. We were criticized for what we had to say. So likewise, like the energy gets caught here before it can enter and really embody and like flood into the heart. Wait till your heart opens, and then you're going to feel like, and then you can invite it to tell it it's safe, it can keep going, and then this wakes up. And then the crown chakra opens, and it's just...
That's exactly where it's at this point. I had a very traumatic experience with my child this past week. And my son was stabbed and almost killed last week.
Oh my God.
And, through practice and a lot of studying, I was able to find a lot of compassion and forgiveness for both parties. But I spoke of this with someone earlier. I was very, very, very grounded emotionally and centered and was able to be there, but my head was a mess. And the pressure you speak of feels like at this point I'm still a little shut down and unable to cry. But when I do cry, the tears literally pop and flood and then stop. And it's like the pressure you spoke of here, my head feels like it's going to explode half the time.
Yeah. Sometimes it's happening here and it's happening here, but it's shut off here or here. Yeah. Keep breathing. Lie down if you have to. Open the floodgates, I think the confusion, the fear, the pain happens when we clamp down on it, when we don't allow it. Sometimes we have to find a safe place to allow that to open, to move. Sometimes even just lying down and putting your hands on your heart and breathing into that can be a way to help things open up. Yeah, what happens is we don't get the oxygen to the head when the belly center is not able to feed the head center because the heart is closed or in pain. Then the head gets confused. You feel that? Yeah. Like you said, you're energized and you were present. You were present, but your head was all over the place. Yeah. So start to... It's like connecting the dots. What my experience is that through trauma in childhood, it's like our oneness, the unity of the axis, gets cut. Maybe once, maybe a few times. So the process of awakening is like healing that and connecting and then letting it circulate. Yeah, thank you for your offering, Okay, yes?
Do you have any suggestions on practices to help to open the
Singing.
About this energy, I've been a writer, and I haven't written anything. I mean, I've written a lot about in the last 5 years. I haven't put anything out.
Yeah.
And sometimes it feels as though I have.
Yes.
Clamped over
Yes.
and I don't know quite how to move that out.
I find singing is really helpful, like chanting, mantra, kirtan, any kind of devotional singing, Sufi. There are many, even going to a gospel choir or church, whatever you feel.
I mean, I've also been a singer, and
Yeah.
I haven't sung in a while because I live in a house that's very crowded.
Sometimes we sing here. Singing, you know, I mean, some people have a lot of judgment around their capacity to sing, but when all of that kind of falls away and you just let yourself be a child again and sing, it's one of the greatest things in the world, and universally it's healing, and cultures all around the world have always used that, and I notice that that is really one way to take this plug out, you know, take that, if it's plugged there. Singing. We did a couple of people here were on retreat with my husband and I recently in Big Sur, and we did a lot of singing. It's a very important part, because you cultivate a lot of energy when you're on retreat, and you've got to do something with it. And then also, you know, at the last Wednesday of every month, we do Feeding Your Demons here, and that's a really wonderful tool for working with blocks. Emotional, physical, mental. You might be having a little creative block right now. And I've worked with that, and I have an artist friend who worked Feeding Your Demons a lot, and she totally moved through her creative block and started creating more art than ever. It's a simple meditative practice called Feeding Your Demons. It's a 5-step Buddhist-based process that integrates Gestalt therapy, where you dialogue with the fragmented aspect of yourself. Oh, and I also wanted to announce that Noah Levine and I are doing a Refuge, Recovery, and Feeding Your Demons retreat here, 2-day weekend here, March 3rd and 4th. I don't think we have flyers out yet, right? Oh, we do? Oh, great. There are flyers on the desk. And that's going to be really interesting. And you don't have to be in Refuge Recovery to come. He's going to teach about Refuge Recovery, so you don't have to, you know, you don't have to know anything about anything, actually, to come. Just come. Just come. We'll have a good time. What is Refuge Recovery?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a process that Noah Levine developed, inspired by the 12-step process of recovery. He went through it because he had drug and alcohol addiction. He went through the 12 steps and benefited immensely from it, but was a Buddhist. And in the 12 steps, it's more monotheistic based or Christian based languaging. It's not heavy, but they do talk about God from time to time within the 12 steps. And he could handle it, but he's like, he always thought, wouldn't it be cool if there was a Buddhist-based 12-step program? Because, I mean, if you've studied dharma, you know, I mean, we're all addicted to our thoughts. We're addicted to stimuli, and that's what meditation is about. It's about noticing our craving and our attachment, our grasping, and then getting a little space from that and cultivating the inner satisfaction, the inner resources, rather than always going out into the world to get satisfaction. So the story he tells is that he kept trying to get his colleagues to do this Buddhist-based 12-step program because he was busy, had kids, and he just, quite frankly, was not sure if he wanted to take this on because he knew it would be big and important. And nobody was doing it. And so he said he finally just threw up his hands and he said, okay, fine, I'll do it. And he wrote a book called Refuge Recovery. They might sell it here. Do you guys sell it here? So I have not read the book. I just got the audio book because I'm finding nowadays with my busy lifestyle, I'm listening more than reading. And I'm excited to do that. I've looked at parts of it, but I've co-taught with him before on he's taught the Refuge Recovery and I did the Feeding Your Demons. That's why I'm here right now, is because we had a good rapport. He liked the Feeding Your Demons practice in the context of overcoming addiction or working with addiction and healing from that. So he asked me to come and teach that here. So for the first year I taught here, I was doing every Wednesday night Feeding Your Demons. And then we transitioned into Lojong and other themes since then. But what people kept asking me, when are you going to do Feeding Your Demons again? And so I decided to do it the last Wednesday of every month. We do Feeding Your Demons. So please come. I think, for the things that people have brought up, it's very helpful. Yes, Moshe.
Well, if I could just offer kind of connecting that and the comment there as well. So I did the Feeding the Demons work on retreat and really found this strong throat chakra block energetically. And I'd seen it before, but it was intense. And so I had this intuitive sense I need to sing more, so I actually signed up for a singing class on Monday. It's called Free Your Voice. If you're interested, you're still welcome to join.
Neat.
But to kind of work with that block. So that came up through Feeding the Demons.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
I think singing's where it's at. You know, we're going to get older. We might not be able to like salsa dance or do yoga or acrobatic, but I just feel like as I'm getting older, I remember somebody once said, you know, as you get older, like your voice matures and gets really good at age 40. And I'm like, yeah, I can let go of all the other stuff and focus on, I think that we need to go out singing, you know, I mean, it's just such a joy. Thanks for sharing, Moshe. Yeah.
Tiny thing, for what it's worth, I, a couple months ago, took my first ever singing instruction, like tiny little intro singing class, and I found vocal technique to kind of be a trip. Like it was all, the main thing the teacher said was try to lift your freaking soft palate, and it basically was like, how can I relax my, like, whatever the stuff that produces my voice, how can I relax all that stuff?
Yeah.
It was really weird. My this thing felt really light and it was cool. So if you have never gotten vocal instruction before and you like singing, I would recommend at least trying a little.
Yeah. Maybe talk to Moshe after class if you're into it. Maybe a whole ATS contingency can find our voice. Yes.
Back to Refuge Recovery. There's a
Yeah.
great Refuge Recovery here.
Yes.
Sunday night. We'd love to have you.
When is it?
Sunday night at 7:30.
And there should be maybe a flyer about that too over here.
It is Sunday at 5:30. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sunday at 5:30, Refuge Recovery every week, and it's open to people who are needing some support or
Yeah, I think we invite-
just ongoing, open. It's not a series or anything. Yeah,
Last week we had like 20+ people.
great. Yeah, it's a very important part of this community.
Yeah, and if you know somebody in recovery or if you're in recovery, you want to augment your 12-step or
Yeah.
get away from 12-step.
Yeah. Great. Well, it just feels like this is a good way to start the New Year series. Normally I've got a slogan we talk about from the Lojong slogans. We'll dive into that next week. I had a little plan around that, but I also like meeting the group where we are, and that feels more alive and more important. What we'll do next week is dive into these teachings called mind training or Lojong, and they are very deep and wide. We just completed in December the 59th slogan of Lojong, and I got so many requests to just loop back around and start again at number 1. So we're going to do that. And I've handed out the Lojong slogans. You can keep this if you want. If you don't want it, you can hand it in. Did you not get one? Yeah. You can keep it.
Can we get 2?
Get 2, get 3. I made 200 copies today, so you can have, everybody can have one. And do you need more? Yeah.
I can just pass it.
Absolutely. I'm going to briefly explain it. So the Lojong, Lo means mind and Jong means to train. So that's why we call it mind training. It's popularized by Chogyam Trungpa, one of the early Tibetan Buddhist masters who came from India, from Tibet, India, and then here. And then some of you may be familiar with Pema Chodron. She has written many books on Lojong. She kind of popularized it. And one of her great books is called Start Where You Are. It's one of my all-time favorites. So if you want to learn more, what I want to encourage you guys to do is if you want to come every week and really go deeper into these practices, get a book or 2. I would recommend first Pema Chodron's Start Where You Are. I love that book. Who said that? Yeah, isn't that a fabulous book? And then this is a newer one that you might love too. It's by a great teacher, Dzigar Kongtrul. And the foreword is by Pema Chodron. It's called The Intelligent Heart. The Intelligent Heart, A Guide to the Compassionate Life by Dzigar Control. D-Z-I-G-A-R. Control is K-O-N-G-T-R-U-L. The Intelligent Heart. You can get it on Kindle also. I'm going to be referring to this book and Pema Chodron's book and a few other sources too, but I wanted to encourage you guys to, if you like to do reading and background study, to get these two books, have those in your library. They're very beautiful books. So Lojong is a Buddhist practice that came from India and made its way to Tibet around the 1100s with a great Indian master named Atisha. Atisha was one of the great Mahayana masters of India. And this was during a time in Tibet when Buddhism had already come to Tibet around the 8th century, and it flourished for a couple hundred years. And then it went through a period of degeneration. And what the texts say is that people started to use the Dharma for their own self-interest. And for me, that has echoes in today's world. You know, buy this, do this, buy my training. Da, da, da. You know, I mean, this type of self-interest or making money off of Dharma can really, it doesn't have to, but it can water down and compromise the authenticity of the teachings. So we have to be careful about that. That's why here it's just dana. You know, you give what you give. This is not my day job. I could not make a living off of teaching Dharma. You know, I do other things. And that's nice. I like it like that because it keeps this in a different category for me personally. So, in any case, coming back, something like that was happening in Tibet. And the king at the time, named Yeshe in Tibet, was saddened by the sorry state of Dharma in Tibet around the around 1000 CE. And so he asked some of his regents to go down to India and invite this great master, Atisha, who was known far and wide for his scholarship, for his practice, his wisdom and compassion. And so Atisha refused, and on the third time he finally said yes, and he came. And he taught according to the needs of the Tibetan people at the time. And it's said that he developed slogans, short, easy to remember, easy to understand, easy to memorize phrases for his students to memorize, study, contemplate, discuss, so that they could learn the Dharma and he could help revive Buddhism. And his tradition became known as the Kadampa lineage. And there's a newer strand called the New Kadampa. I would say don't go there. There's some, I don't want to say that word, there's some controversy around this modern manifestation of Kadampa called the New Kadampa, and I'm not advocating that group at all. Even the Dalai Lama says not good. But what they did is they borrowed the original name Kadampa, which is, it just simply means those who follow the oral teachings. And it's a beautiful lineage with profound teachings, and the heart of it is these Lojong teachings of mind training school. And so Atisha brought these teachings on compassion and wisdom to Tibet, and they weren't taught widely at first, and actually became generally known only with the great Kadampa master Chikawa Yeshe Dorje. And he is the one who synthesized and wrote down the slogans that you have here in your hand in 7 main categories or chapters. So you have a total of 59 one-liners, like slogans, that are in 7 different groupings there with different themes. Chikawa is claimed to have cured leprosy with mind training. In one account, he went to live with a colony of lepers, not leopards, lepers, and did the practice with them. Over time, he went to live, many of them were healed, And more came, and eventually people without leprosy also took an interest in the practice. So it can be a healing practice for others and for ourselves. And the story goes that Chikawa, who wrote this text, came across these teachings of Atisha by accident. During a visit to a friend, he caught sight of an open book on his friend's bed. And he read the line, "Give all victory to others, take defeat for yourself." Give all victory to others, take defeat for yourself. He was intrigued by this phrase. It was a total shift of perspective and a different way of thinking. And so he looked more closely and began to study this book. And this book was called The 8 Verses of Mind Training by an earlier teacher who was in the Atisha lineage. His name was Langri Tangpa. Now, of course, you don't need to remember any of these names, but just to honor the lineage, I like to tell the story of how this came to be. And so this particular author, Langri Tangpa, had already died when Chikawa found this book, but he was able to find another master who had studied with him. His name was Sharawa, another Kadampa teacher who had received transmission from Langri Tangpa. So for 12 years, Chikawa Yeshe Dorje studied and practiced mind training and summarized the teachings in the 7 points of mind training that you have with you now. The main gist of these teachings are that they teach us about what's called absolute truth, meaning the nature of reality, nature of mind. Slogans such as find the consciousness you had before you were born. Find the consciousness you had before you were born. Or another one is view all appearances as dreams. So these are one-line slogans that are easy to remember, that help. Then the teacher can open them up like a book or like an accordion and share deeper teachings, give commentary to these very pithy one-liners. So it's a useful way to go week by week throughout the year and to deepen our study and practice of Dharma. So these slogans teach about this absolute truth and bodhicitta, which is the spirit of awakening, or the mind of awakening, the intention to awaken for the benefit of all beings. And on an absolute level, it's said that this experience and this truth of bodhicitta on an absolute level is understanding shunyata, which is emptiness. Emptiness, which is not like a nihilism. It's not nihilistic. It's actually the interconnected web of all things. Individual things are empty of separate, independent existence. So the word emptiness is a little misleading, and it's important to explain it. And on the other hand, these slogans also teach methods for relating to the world in a more constructive way on a relative level, understanding how to cultivate what's called compassion or relative bodhicitta. So relative bodhicitta is the practice of compassion. Absolute bodhicitta is a direct perception into the nature of reality. So relative level bodhicitta slogans, a few are be grateful to everyone. We talked about this one a few weeks ago on Thanksgiving, of all things. It just happened to fall right on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Be grateful to everyone. Think about that. Or when everything goes wrong, treat disaster as a way to wake up. That's kind of a colloquial translation of, when the world is filled with misery and suffering, use it or integrate it in your path of awakening. So even the hardship is actually fuel for your practice. It's not about getting out. It's about digging in and working with it. So there are many really good kind of relative level or kind of on the ground practical slogans that help us bring our dharma practice into our daily lives. So oftentimes we practice and then we get up and we're an asshole. Right? So the majority of the slogans are very practical, really raw, kind of salt of the earth teachings on how to bring your practice into the world. So they're very profound. I mean, I'll just go year after year looping around 1 through 59, 1 through 59, 1 until I die. And I would still be learning. So that's the idea for the year. And we'll start with numero uno on next Wednesday. So with that, it's time to close. Let's just take a moment to drop in and close your eyes, or leave them slightly hooded if you prefer, and just feel your belly. Feel the feeling tone of the whole body, and the belly, the heart, the mind, the head center, the heart center, the belly center, and feel them all in some way interrelated, communicating with each other. And acknowledging the opportunity we have to practice Dharma, to have Sangha, community of fellow practitioners, support, encouragement, inspiration, and how special that is. How fortunate we are. And may we practice so that we can be a refuge for others.